It's been so nice to have a place that I was in a position to design with Matt and have it specifically built to do the one thing I do. And most importantly, you just kind of can't make drums sound bad in here. So Matt also built this thing. He had the idea for this cymbal case, and it's just plywood and metal lining and felt inside the box or whatever. And just cymbals are the hardest thing to store because, do you get a big rack? You can't store them vertically. Putting them in bags is all, So I just needed some slots, and Matt came up with that, and that's been awesome. Yeah, it's open backed, so it doesn't have low end buildup in it, and the cymbals don't resonate. It's pretty incredible. One of the things that is a tell when you start to use room emulation is that I always feel like I can hear the beater of the kick too much. So that's what's telling me that the mic isn't that far away and that they're, it's kind of being inflated. By having this little 26 by 26 gobo it's the same construction as the wall units here, but having that to put in front of the kick drum to protect the room mics from the bass drum. And when you then use room emulation, it really kind of sells that it's legitimate sounding. It's just something about hearing the 5K click of the beater in the room mic is that mic is 10 feet away, not 30 feet. So having something to break that up before it gets to the room mics really helps sell the distance.
Hello and welcome to Mothership Gear. Today we're at Dan Bailey's studio for a little studio tour. So Dan, who built this studio?
My buddy Matt Walker with Western Acoustic built this in kind of summer of 2020 when we moved over here and kind of went at it trying to find a way to get some 70s booth sounds in a house, because a lot of times with converted rooms or using existing construction, you're kind of stuck with the, drywall isn't a pleasant sound. So kind of starting from scratch with the room that's designed to have drums in it and stuff is really great. Matt's incredible.
When you guys built this, materials wise, what was the inspiration?
The room is built to perform, it's a 19 by 16 by 9 foot room. So it's not super big. It's about the biggest thing you can put in a 2.5 car garage. And this wall back here is covering up a significant, I think it's a 2 foot deep spot that has a bunch of absorption and stuff in it. So basically low end goes in here and doesn't come back out. Mm-hmm. And so this is just a false wall, which is part of the reason why, I get people ask me about the percussion being up, and this is just my ADHD. I have to be able to see what I have or I'll forget.
Right.
But this doesn't make any noise because it's not attached to anything solid. Just sound goes through it and kind of disappears. But yeah, the main performer in the room is this kind of false wall. And then otherwise, we went with a lot of acoustic tile diffusion, kind of 60s, 70s style, the type you'd see in cafeterias, and are in these old studios. And then, for our treatment boxes on the wall, we wanted to, with the walnut strips and stuff, wanted to go for that kind of Ocean Way B is my favorite studio I've ever worked in. And it's when we were picking a kind of a color scheme and a direction, that seemed like the kind of the North Star,
And then flooring, what's going on with the floors?
This is just vinyl or linoleum you'd have at the grocery store, and that's when you go into all these old rooms, East, West, and all, they're just using 60s construction materials. They're not, they're using what they had on hand and then making it sound good. So we kind of went to that same, we don't need wood floors in here. It's if linoleum's good enough for the Beach Boys, it'll work for me.
As far as working in a space like this, you produce content, you record records all day, and you have it so your analog outboard gear is behind me, your snake is in front of me, and then you have a computer and you have a TV here. How did you arrive at this specific layout?
Yeah, I started off, like a lot of people do, with having my outboard over here so I could adjust gains, kind of hit the snare, there's that, have it within arm's reach. But there was something about there's no rhyme or reason to this, or I don't know that there's anything scientific, but for me, I have a lot of old tube gear that is very temperamental, old, Ampex and stuff like that. And having it next to the space that all this concussion is happening just seemed like problematic. And, you could, if I'm playing quiet enough, you could hear little rattles and stuff, which keeping it on the far side of the room fixes that. But also, when you're working on a song, I may spend 30 minutes actually playing the drums. Most of it's over here, the file management part, the getting sounds, and printing files from a seated position behind a drum kit is not fun. So moving everything over there. Well, and it allows me to do the occasional like overdub session in here where I can just engineer or to engineer a different drummer if, a time or two my buddy Keenan's been over here. Yeah, I would tell. I don't get the opportunity often, but when it arises, it's always fun to just engineer and let someone play drums for sure.
It gives you diversity and it lets you switch your brain of like, I perform and then I come and edit.
Well, I hit a certain age too where just my back started to kill me. And so just like, you just catch yourself over here like doing, administration work in the worst posture, possible. And so, yeah, just having that stuff, it's definitely like a left brain, right brain division,
Right.
You do all that type of stuff over there and do the artistic stuff over here,
Maybe tell us about your snake. This is a custom snake built, or is this a product that you bought online?
So my buddy over at Sanctus Sound Recording, he makes like rack studio gear, so rack cases and snakes and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, just it's a 16 channel Mogami. It allows me to leave everything plugged in behind the rack and kind of make some basically my patch bay is at the snake where I plug what mic goes in what channel and all that. But yeah, that's been great to just have that. Because nothing's worse than chasing, connections behind your rack, and trying to see what's going on back there and stuff.
As far as the 16 channels that you're using with the Apollo, do you want to walk us through the gear that's in the rack behind me and how it relates to what's plugged into the snake?
So if we're just going to go kind of a rundown from the top, I've got a pair of Yamaha PM1000 channels that I got off of Reverb from somebody a while back, can't remember, but great for like utility stuff. This is my kick out channel to DBX 676 I use all the time on kickout with the DBX style compression is awesome. This is a Electric & Company EC3 built by my buddy Matty in Texas and is a like Ampex 300 kind of vibe. Often like my mono overhead is that unit. Got a UA 610 with the LA2A back end, which is awesome. I use on either like kick in or mid kit mic or something like that. A couple of Orban 622Bs, which are their stereo 4-band parametrics. I use these on the Coles overheads all the time. This guy's on my C37 in my room right now. Really great surgical EQs. Got a UAD, 8XP that I've had for 10 or 12 years that is kind of the brain of the whole operation. And this UA 4710, which is kind of some extension channels and stuff for that. These guys are great. Again, don't have a ton of flavor, but are good to like utility preamps. I use them for, hi-hat and bottom snare and tom sometimes, stuff like that. Ampex 600 series, a stereo unit that Matty at Electric & Company ran down for me. Awesome unit. I use it on my stereo, kind of Coles overheads all the time. This is a Federal, I believe the model is a 468. Made by Romp Stomp, a dude in Nashville who recreates old circuits, made me this kind of clone of a Federal limiter that sounds awesome. I use it on like a crunchy mic all the time. This is a Revox C279, which is it's the Canadian branding for a Studer 279 or a 779, sorry, which is their like. I think it's the front end for their 1-inch tape machine back in the late 70s. This is, right now it's on kick in, snare top, snare bottom, tom 1, tom 2. It's almost always my close mics. Sounds awesome. I've got kind of a pedal board set up here that I'll run like a mic through to get some nonsense on a drum sound. And then a Shure M267, which is kind of like their kind of stay level vibe. Great for using it to blow stuff up or limiting stuff like that. There's a pair of DBX 1066s, which are the gates on these are really cool, and I'll occasionally dip into these. And then these are two pieces of Altec gear that also need to go to my buddy Chris in Orange County to get repaired. But an awesome line mixer when it works, but it's 75 years old and it just went out. So it needs to go to the shop. That's pretty much the Outboard gear rundown.
You're running the analog gear into the computer. What's the computer doing as far as plugins that you're hearing?
The computer's basically there. I use Logic like you would use a tape machine. It's kind of like start stop. I don't edit super heavy because I'm not on the production side. I'm on the like raw materials gathering side. So I'm just gonna try to give you full takes because you're hiring me to give a performance. And so I just kind of leave it like a start stop. That's the files. I'll put a little if it's going to be appropriate to the song, I'll put a little like Studer, A800, plug-in on the back end of it, or usually some, like a API 2500 on the master bus, just to give it a little cohesion with the track I'm playing to. But yeah, I don't do a whole lot in the way of plugins, because it just, when you have access to the gear, it's like, why not? That's what people are kind of paying for, is your expertise, and it's hitting a real signal, and it sounds different.
Well, thank you guys so much for checking out this studio tour, and we will see you guys next time. But real quick before we go, Dan, where should they follow along if they want to see more Dan Bailey content?
It's always the easy place is Instagram, D. Richard Bailey over there,
Yeah, if you guys want to follow us here, go ahead and do so, and we will see you guys next time. Later. Bye.